Hey everyone, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow Up. Welcome to our Star Trek Picard Season 1, Episode 7 Thoughts video. Just finished watching the latest episode of Star Trek Picard, and I'm just going to share my general thoughts on the episode. In this episode, Picard and Soji are hiding out while they wait for a pickup from the crew. And where are they hiding out on this planet? Well, they go and see Riker and Troy, and so I really loved this episode. I've been waiting for this one to see how we brought Riker and Donna Troy into this one, and I really enjoyed it. I like that we were kind of set up in the last episode for knowing we're going to this planet, and I didn't put together that this would be the perfect time for him to go to Riker. So I like that I didn't quite put it together till the episode started. So that was a nice little fun bit of it. And then just getting to spend this whole episode where Picard's getting just pretty much getting schooled from Donna and Riker the whole time about how he isn't necessarily approaching this relationship with Soji the best way, trying to gain her trust, which is about another big focus or the big focus, I guess, of this episode, which is Soji. It doesn't trust anybody. She says it multiple times, and Picard wants her to, and Donna Troy has to school him a little bit about how Picard's a little bit arrogant, doesn't know how she's feeling, how she's Soji's feeling about all this, and how she can't trust. So I just really enjoyed this episode. Just felt straight, like it felt like it was almost like a Next Generation episode, in the sense that we got Donna telling Picard how to be better and schooling him in certain ways, and then having Riker, bouncing these ideas off him. And I like that their relationships have evolved a little bit, particularly considering they're not under his command anymore. Being that they're not, he's not their captain. They're not on the Enterprise anymore. So that I like that, like particularly his and Will's relationship. You can see they've it's grown a little bit throughout. Will's a little bit more free to speak or feels more free to speak his mind about certain things that in the past Picard he might not have been willing to quite go as far to say, or might have worded it a little differently. So I just kind of really enjoyed this episode, just like because we just spent the whole time with the three of them, and just having this kind of growth, a little bit of growth for maybe not growth isn't the right word for Picard, but like just kind of a realization that he's been a little bit not compassionate enough when it comes to the situation that Soji's going through, which is how she'd always believed her life was one thing, and then in the last 24 hours or so, it's all just changed, and everyone's just expecting her to keep going and just be okay with it and trust all of a sudden, just because she's at this really nice place again. And it's like, well, we obviously know all these characters and why she should trust them, but it's interesting that Donna's the one who has to point it out to everybody that not Donna, Diana, has to point out to everybody that she's gone through some stuff. It's not just a assumption you would trust all of us just because we all trust one another. Yeah, we've known each other forever. So I really enjoyed the whole dynamic of this episode and just kind of focusing around that. Another part that wasn't regarding that was on the ship. We had Agnes is still dealing a lot with her grief over the the fact that she killed Bruce, Dr. Bruce Maddox, and so that was a fun little, not fun I guess, but interesting to kind of see how she's really not dealing well with the guilt of it, and the fact that the guilt kind of continues, because we see at the beginning of the episode there was a flashback seeing about how she was kind of recruited by the Romulans, or the ones who were working with the Romulans, to kill Bruce, and then also being tracked, and we see in this episode that the Romulans are tracking him. Is tracking them, in particular tracking her, and even at one point Rios thinks that it's Raffi who's being tracked and not Agnes, doesn't even suspect Agnes, even though Agnes is acting super weird. Everyone's just Raffi even calls her out on acting weird, and no one's put anything together. Well, I guess they're just all assuming that she's just really torn up over the fact that Maddox is dead, and no one's even having the thought that there could be more to it than that she's just upset about it, and she's that's how she's reacting, and so it's interesting to see how no one's even suspects that she might have had something more to involved with his death, or that she's kind of got this guilt. Obviously we know this as the audience because we see it, so we can see that her feelings are obviously feelings of guilt, but it's interesting to see that the characters on the ship don't quite pick up that she feels guilty, you know, like that's the vibes I'm like obviously getting off her. But again, that's because we saw what she did, unlike the other team. But that's the other funny part about this actually is that the hologram saw her, and they tried to call the hologram up at one point, and he didn't show up when they tried to call her. But then there's an actual emergency, and the hologram shows up, and I'm like, when's one of the holograms gonna snitch? I can't remember which hologram it was. I can't remember if it was the doctor or the hospitality one that saw her. I'm assuming it was the doctor one because she killed her. Yeah, so it was obviously the doctor hologram. But why hasn't he told on her yet? Can he just not activate himself? Is that something he can't report? I feel like that's something regarding to the ship's, the crew's welfare, is letting somebody, let the captain know that there's a murderer on board. So that was just a kind of interesting thing. I'm curious to see how it plays out next episode, because we leave this episode with Agnes kind of, I got the impression that she was trying to kill herself maybe, or like, I guess the thing she injects herself with neutralizes the tracker, or the tracker that the Romulans were using to track her, and thus the ship, and then she goes into a coma because of that. So I'm not sure because they say warning neurotoxic effects. So like obviously she knew that it was going to have a negative effect, and obviously I think that was part of her intent because of all this guilt, and she'd also wanted to stop the tracker. But I'm curious to see if she's actually going to be still kicking around or not. I don't know if like the coma's, well, the fact that it's a coma does seem to think that she's probably going to come out of it, at least in my opinion, but we'll have to see. I'm curious to see where that goes. But yeah, this episode overall was just really interesting and fun. I particularly like that we finally got Riker and Troy showing up in this episode, and it was just a fun, like I thought it was just really well done the way they were brought in, and I love that they're spend the whole time offering to help, being 100% willing to help, that Riker's even prepared. He activates the shields and stuff, and activates some scans. And they're fully prepared to just immediately help Picard. Like he even said he knew that they would. But in the beginning of the season, he even says like that's why he didn't ask his old crew, because he knew they'd be so willing to help. And he spends this whole episode kind of being like, no, you guys can't help. I can't get you involved. That's why I had a new crew, so that you guys wouldn't get all in danger. I won't endanger your daughter. So I really enjoyed it overall. It was just really fun to get to see them kind of reunite for an episode, and yeah, just all the fun things that go with that. So yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. Oh, I almost forgot one other thing. We lost one sad thing about this episode. There was so much fun about the Riker stuff. I forgot the sad part, which is Hugh died. He died on the ship, and Nelnor's just hanging out there now too, and he seems a little bit hopeless until he activates this beacon, this SOS that I forgot he had, and I forget who it's supposed to connect to. I remember him being given it, don't remember who gave it to him. Or I vaguely remember, I just remember it being a thing before, I don't remember what it connects to. But yeah, so that was sad to see that Hugh died. I was hoping he would get a little bit more revenge for the XBs that had been killed by the Romulan lady. So that was a little bit of a, like I said, and they snuck that in the middle of the episode, so I had more Riker stuff, and that made me forget about it a little bit. So poor Hugh getting I didn't mean to overshadow him. It was a very sad thing to see him die. But yeah, so that's all my thoughts on this episode of Star Trek Picard. Be sure to let me know in the comments below what you thought about this latest episode. Thanks again for joining me today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and have a good one.